Hi, it's Danny from Danny Sports Mario Patel, looking ahead at the week in the world of sports. This is the week we start play in the EFL Championship. Premier League still a week away. We will have the Community Shield this weekend. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But the season gets underway for the EFL Championship and also League One and League Two. And that means it gets underway for three teams that were in the Premier League, obviously last year got relegated. Two of them are going to meet in a championship game on Sunday night. That's West Ham and Burnley. Last year, just this spring, when they met, it would have been in the Premier League. This time it's in the championship. We'll see how that goes. A third team that went down to the championship, they will start the championship season this year on Friday night. Wolverhampton Wanderers playing against Blackburn Rovers. Blackburn just survived last year, being relegated to League One. A team that did not survive in the championship last year, a little bit surprising maybe, was Leicester City. Now, it's only 2 years ago Leicester City were in the Premier League, and of course, it's only 10 years ago that Leicester City won the Premier League, and one of the real shock results, and as you go on, maybe even more shocking than it was at the time. But they're now down in League One. And what's interesting about that, they play on Saturday, their first game in League One at 6:30 p.m. here, our time, and they're playing against Notts County. Now, Notts County just came up from League Two. They were promoted out of the playoffs last year in League Two. They spent 2 years in League Two. Before that, they spent 4 seasons out of the league structure altogether in the National League. Now they're playing Leicester City. 4 years ago, Leicester City are in the Premiership, Notts County are in the National League. Now they're in the same league, and they will play in League One on Saturday night. So that's the Championship, League One and League Two. Of course, we also have Bundesliga 2 has already started. They started this past weekend. We've had the Scottish Premiership underway for a couple of weeks already. The other leagues in Europe still getting underway the rest of this month. And for the Premier League, it's a week from Friday with Arsenal playing Coventry. Now, Arsenal will play this week on Sunday, and it'll be the Community Shield, which traditionally was the curtain raiser for the English football season. It's lost a little bit of its luster, and in fact, this year, the FA moved the game to Cardiff because they decided they'd rather have concert at Wembley Stadium on Sunday rather than have the Community Shield there. But it'll be Arsenal, the winners of the Premier League, against Manchester City, the winners of the FA Cup. You can look at it as a glorified friendly. You can look at it as the first trophy of the season. In some ways, it's a little bit of each. It matters a little bit more than some of these other friendlies, but it certainly doesn't matter as much as will next week when they're playing when the teams are playing in the Premier League. Also this week, there's Super Cup in France and the UEFA Super Cup. Now, the UEFA Super Cup is another kind of made-up cup that matters somewhat to the teams that are in it and maybe not so much to any of the other teams. This year, it matches the winners from the previous year of the Champions League and the Europa League. And what that means this year, and it's on Wednesday night, tomorrow night, 2 a.m., is it'll be Paris Saint-Germain, who won the Champions League the last 2 years, playing against Aston Villa, who won the Europa League this past year. And just as last year when Paris Saint-Germain played Tottenham Hotspur, the game ended up going to penalties with Paris Saint-Germain winning after Paris Saint-Germain or Tottenham had been up 2-0 in that game. That would have been a huge win for Tottenham had they been able to pull it off, and they weren't. It'll be a huge win for Aston Villa against a team like Paris Saint-Germain. Now, for Paris Saint-Germain, does this game matter? Maybe a little bit, probably not as much. They've won it before. They won the Champions League. This is the Super Cup. But it is a game that is competitive and will be going on this week. Also during the week, we have a third qualifying round in the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League. There's still yet one more playoff round before we get to the league stage, which is when the big teams from the Premier League and Bundesliga will enter the tournament. But for the teams that are in it, obviously this week, important, a chance to qualify for the Champions League. Looking at some other sports, in Australia, in NRL, we have a huge matchup on Thursday. Penrith playing against the Sydney Roosters. Penrith lost last weekend in New Zealand. Penrith have won 4 of the last 5 premierships. They've won 4 years in a row and then lost last year in the finals. They are playing the Roosters. Now, right now, Penrith and the Roosters have the same number of points. We're coming down towards the end of the season. It's only a matter of who wins what they call the minor premiership. Both teams all likelihood are going to have a home final right from the start, be 1-2 or 1-2-3 with the Warriors as the other team that has a chance. But still, we're looking at two teams on the same number of points. Penrith ahead on points differential right now. That's going on this weekend. We're down to 2 weeks left in the AFL home and away season. Some interesting games there in terms of who is going to make that wild card round, which is the first time they've ever had it for the teams finishing 7th through 10th, and also who can finish in the top 6, which means you can avoid being in the wild card round. So that'll be going on also all weekend. We've got the championship, League One and League Two. We've got the Community Shield. We've got AFL. We've got NRL. We've got some baseball. We've got the start of the NFL preseason. Actually started with the Hall of Fame game last week, but this week all 32 teams in action in the first weekend of preseason games. We'll have some of those games live midnight Saturday night. So that's going on too. There's some boxing tomorrow from Australia. Tero Moana Jr., who has had 11 fights and 11 knockouts, is fighting against DeAndre Savage, an American who also has 11 knockouts in 12 fights. It's a fight that probably isn't getting a lot of attention around the world, but it could be interesting in Australia, especially if the Australian fighter can knock out the American and maybe 12 knockouts, and maybe then he can get a bigger fight, bigger money against someone better known, and maybe make more of a name for himself. We'll have all that going on this week at Danny's, and of course next week, the start of the Premier League season. Come join us.